through the 3 seasons. He was very much present during the first and most of the second, but when I think he kind of got himself into a bit of a bind. For 50 years, Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner were more than co-stars. They were brothers. They shared a trailer for 3 years. They drove to work together every morning. They saved Star Trek from cancellation by standing together. But in 2011, Shatner made one decision that Nimoy could never forgive. When Nimoy sent his final message to Shatner, the words were so harsh that Shatner broke down in public. Today we're revealing what really happened between two legends. Leonard Nimoy was born on March 26, 1931, right in the middle of the Great Depression. His parents had escaped violent pogroms in Ukraine, hoping for a better life in Boston. But what they found was poverty, discrimination, and a country in crisis. His father worked as a barber, making just $15 a week, while his mother stayed home to care for the family. Their neighborhood was rough, and by the time Leonard was 6, he had already seen families around him evicted from their homes. Nearly half the kids he grew up with would drop out of school. To help make ends meet, he started selling newspapers for 2 cents each, dodging gangs on the street as he ran his route. That early exposure to struggle and to people being pushed aside never left him. At 8 years old, something happened. He was cast in a Yiddish version of Hansel and Gretel, performing in a neighborhood theater that barely fit more than a few rows of folding chairs. 50 cents per show felt like a fortune, especially during wartime rationing. But what shook him more were the people he stood next to. Holocaust survivors newly arrived, whispering horrors backstage that no child should have heard. Nimoy didn't flinch. He soaked it in. By the time he turned 12, he'd already done over 20 shows. And though his voice shook and he stuttered off stage, something magical happened when he was acting. He didn't stumble. He didn't freeze. That stutter vanished completely. When he turned 18, he joined the army. Most people think of soldiers in combat, boots in trenches. Nimoy was in Georgia, at Fort McPherson, putting on plays for thousands of soldiers. 15 shows in 2 years, including a scandalous version of Guys and Dolls that nearly got him court-martialed. They said it was subversive. He called it a performance. While others trained for battle, he directed propaganda films that quietly sharpened his camera instincts. And behind all that structure, he fought through undiagnosed dyslexia, something he later said actually helped him memorize Spock's lines word for word. When he finally arrived in Hollywood in 1953, the city didn't roll out any red carpets. He had $50 in a borrowed suitcase. He drove taxis 12 hours a day, sold vacuums door to door, 200 units in 1 year, and lived in a motel for $25 a month, eating cold tuna straight from the can. He once said he auditioned for 300 roles and barely landed scraps. Got dark. At one point in 1956, he hinted at thoughts that scared him, ones he only shared years later in his memoir. But he didn't quit. That's what mattered. Bit by bit, the screen opened. A thief on Dragnet earned him $100. A mind-reading soldier on The Twilight Zone brought him just $750. And a strange foreshadowing of the Spock that hadn't been born yet. He was in Perry Mason Rawhide, even sharing the screen with a young Clint Eastwood long before either of them became legends. But the roles were shallow, the pay was tiny, and being cast as the foreign villain over and over again started to crack his nerves. By 1963, he was teetering on burnout. But then the script that would change his life appeared. Just 4 days before Nimoy was born, another boy entered the world in a cold corner of Montreal. William Shatner. His father's clothing business was collapsing under the weight of the depression, and his mother, a speech teacher, spent hours trying to coax confidence out of him. 5. He caught measles during an outbreak that killed hundreds of children in the city. He survived, and something about him changed. Fear started to bounce off him like rain. By age 9 he was already on the radio hosting a kid show for the CBC, getting paid $1 per episode. You could hear Kirk in his voice even then. He was supposed to be an economist. That's what the scholarship said when he enrolled at McGill in 1949. But the classroom couldn't hold him. He skipped lectures to act in 12 different plays, including a daring Hamlet that nearly got him expelled when word got out that he'd fake sick to be on stage. He graduated with barely passing grades, but by then it didn't matter. He wasn't thinking about banks anymore. Theater cured him of the quiet dread that haunted him as a child, something he once admitted showed up as bedwetting anxiety. The spotlight turned that off like a switch. He joined Canada's Stratford Festival in 1954, understudying none other than Christopher Plummer. And then it happened. One night mid-P performance, Playmember fell sick. Shatner was rushed on stage. 2,000 people watched as the unknown kid filled the role of Henry V. Without a stammer, they rose to their feet before he even finished. The next morning his name wasn't just in the program, it was in the newspapers. That same year he broke 3 ribs in a car crash and still limped on stage to perform that night. No understudy for him. Not anymore. Then came Broadway. Susie Wong ran for over 500 shows with Shatner carrying the lead and earning the kind of reviews that had studios circling. He drank 10 cups of coffee a day just to stay focused, hiding what he now believes was undiagnosed ADHD. Sometimes he forgot lines. Sometimes he made them up, and audiences never noticed. He turned that into a signature, improvising, adapting, never